Well, hello everyone. So today is about trust. It's about connection, and it's also about ethics in the workplace. How great is that? My guest, Karen Bulluck's here with her book, Pursuing Truth, book 2, the Ascending Ladder series. So let's get into it. All right, Ms. Keep us up to date in the suspense. Karen, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am great, Maureen, and I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me. I know this is going to be a lot of fun. And I love talking about Pursuing Truth. It's really been an amazing book, and I love the feedback I've gotten so far on it. So, woohoo!
Well, it's a great book, and it's a great book in the series of 3 with a third in the works. We know it's a lot more in the works and being where that's coming from. So, but let's get into this book right now. So let's get into the character. Let's get into Cheryl. Let's get into the amazing woman in the workplace and juggling her relationship and making it all work, coming through as protagonist and hero. Tell us about Cheryl and why'd you write the book?
Well, as you know, this is book 2 in the series. So I was originally inspired to write about Cheryl because I wanted to write about women's leadership. And I, started writing a book that was nonfiction. And honestly, I was bored to tears with it. So I figured everybody else would be too. And then one day I was taking a walk and I started to hear the story of Cheryl. I started to kind of it's time to get in touch with Cheryl, maybe my inner Cheryl, who knows? And so that's how the first book, which is called Discovering Power, unfolded. And then when I got to the end of the first book, a couple people said to me, "Oh, you left some things hanging." There really needs to be another book, because one of the things that happens, I think, with a lot of women in the workplace, particularly when they get to higher levels of the organization, it sometimes can create friction at home. It can create friction, especially when you've got 2 people with pretty high-powered careers, and that's what happens with Cheryl and her husband. She's got, he's got his career, she's got hers, and in book 1, there's some conflict between how she's handling things at work and how he perceives that she should be. So really that story needed to unfold further. And one of the things that Cheryl starts to realize is that she's actually not sure she can trust her husband. So she's not sure what's going on with him. There's some things that are making her think, ooh, is there somebody else? Is there something else going on? I'm really not sure. And so that's part of the Pursuing Truth in book 2, what's going on with her husband and where is their relationship and what does that look like, especially as she continues to evolve and grow as a leader. And then the second part of Pursuing Truth is actually, and I think you alluded to this a minute ago, is one of her subordinates, who is one of my favorite characters. Her name is Keisha, and I just love Keisha. She's so much fun. Which she finds something in one of the databases that Cheryl's responsible for, because Cheryl's in information technology. And all of a sudden there's another investigation to try to figure out, okay, is there something nefarious going on at work? Is somebody hiding something? And if so, what exactly are they hiding? So that triggers a whole investigation at work. And so she's dealing with this basically lack of trust on both sides. She doesn't know who she can trust at work. She doesn't know if she can trust her husband at home. And she's got to look for what's the truth, what's really going on, and who can I trust?
That piece, who do we trust? Who can we trust? Can you go into that a little bit? And I love how that came out, because it's like one of the core principles of the book. Why did you bring in trust, and what does that all mean, and how do people go from there?
Well, to your point, in today's world, there is so little trust. There's the public distrust, which I don't even, I don't even want to go through. But there's a lot of public distrust of corporations. There's a lot of distrust of leadership. There's there can be a lot of distrust that can easily grow in relationships. And whether they're workplace relationships or personal ones, trust is such a foundational piece, but yet it's so easy for it to get lost or get compromised, maybe is a better word. And one of the things that's really interesting in the book, particularly in the relationships with Cheryl and Dave, her husband, and then there's a friend that Dave has at work. So there's actually three voices in Pursuing Truth. There's a perspective from Cheryl's perspective, there's her husband's perspective, Dave's, and then this young woman that Dave works with, her perspective. And you see a lot of misinterpretation, right? People jumping to the wrong conclusions about actions and about words and about how things are shared. And it goes to show just how easy it is for us to misinterpret things, because we always see things through our own lens. We always interpret things through our filters. And sometimes what our filters are and what somebody else's filters are two entirely different things. So there's a lot of misinterpretation in this book. And I think it really represents the reality of relationships, sometimes workplace relationships, because they can get complicated. Let's face it, we spend a lot of time with people we work with, and those workplace relationships can get really complicated.
I was just about to say that, about how much time we spend in the work and who we are there, right? So now the piece, so you're talking about the trio, right, of the relationship there and the drama there, which is so much fun. You gotta read the book. But within that piece, how to go into a little bit about walking it back, reestablishing the trust, and even beginning to have that conversation.
Well, I think what's really interesting about how Cheryl approaches this, and this sort of unfolds in the first book as well. But one of the core issues that Cheryl has to start with is, how much does she trust herself?
Ooh.
And we always, trust actually begins with trusting ourselves. And so that is where Cheryl starts. That's where she has to say, okay, I don't know who I can trust in the outside world, but can I really trust myself? Do I trust my instincts? Do I trust my intuition? Do I trust my ability to read the people in the room? Do I trust my relationship with myself? Am I strong enough to stand and ask the questions that need to be asked? Do I trust myself enough to really pull those strings to find out? Because if you pull the strings and you don't like the answers, that can be really, that can be challenging too. So you've got to be able to trust yourself to respond appropriately when you pull the strings, regardless of what the outcome is.
Well, and there's a word that it's also the word of trust and courage. Having the courage to stand in that, and yes, Cheryl is very courageous, and that's another piece that doesn't always just come or stay. So right?
No, and she isn't. She ends up being courageous in some situations, but she's not always courageous. I mean, we're not always courageous, and sometimes we have to wrestle with things in order to become courageous, in order to find that inner strength to act on things. And Cheryl doesn't always. She's like all of us, she's not perfect, thankfully.
No, no one's perfect in the book. And it's fun, and it's real. I mean, the character development is incredible in the book, with all of the characters weaving through. So where does Cheryl go? And I know this is important because it goes up to the topic of self-care, and go into that a little bit, because I think that's another thing that we're always missing. And people that are on the go and being successful and leaders, if the tank's empty, how can we give?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that Cheryl does learn and does do. She has her practice practices that help ground her. She has her meditation, she has her journaling, she has her friend Cindy that she talks to. She has her, and I'm going to say her connection to her higher self or her inner wisdom, or, that core of herself that she actively cultivates in order to manage the situation and keep herself under control. One of the things I talk about and work with my clients is moving from the survivor brain, where we're motivated by fear and fear, worried about survival, jumping to the wrong conclusions, to moving to the sage brain, the wisdom part of your brain, where you can make good decisions and you can act in the highest good of all, not just pure self-interest. And Cheryl actively cultivates moving from that part of her brain that's fear-based to the part of her brain that's love-based. And she, that's part of, not to give too much away, but that's part of her journey.
There's so much wisdom in an exciting story.
Yeah.
And that went from the nonfiction to fiction, but it's in there.
Well, I'm a true believer that any good story also teaches us lessons. Any good story helps us reflect on ourselves. If we can really identify with the characters and say, well, what would I do in this situation? And, hopefully be inspired by them. My mission is to inspire women leaders to transcend the ordinary. That's why my business is called Dare to Transcend, and transcend just means to rise above. So it's really, can you rise above your current circumstances and have a higher perspective on things, look at things from different angles, and be able to respond in innovative and creative ways to situations. And Cheryl's on the journey to try to do that.
And again, with an exciting, dramatic way. So I do want to get into a little bit here. I'm going to pull it sideways to make it current in the sense of what's happening today and what's happening in the world. So IT, right? In that area. And then you also have finance, right? In a company. If there's foul play going on, is there traces that are able to, is the trail, can it be seen even when, and how obvious can that be?
That's a hard question to answer. I think I'm going to say, from Pursuing Truth standpoint, it was pretty well hidden. If Keisha hadn't stumbled on some things, if she hadn't gone the extra mile to dig in, and I think that's one of the things, that Keisha teaches us is, it's so easy to just accept things on the surface and say, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about this and move on. And that makes it easy for people who are doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing to hide them, right? Because if we accept things on the surface and we don't question things, we don't say, wait a minute, something's not right here, it can be easy to hide. And it's so easy in the corporate world. You're so busy. You've got so much pressure to meet deadlines. That's one of Keisha's struggles. She said, there's so much pressure to meet this deadline. And yet she stops and says, wait a minute, I don't think something's right here. Even though she knows that it could jeopardize the deadlines, right? And that's obviously part of the drama in this too, is there's this hard and fast deadline that Cheryl and her team have to meet. And Keisha's a key player in that. And by bringing this up, by saying in time out, Keisha puts that project at jeopardy. And if people didn't listen to her, people didn't believe her, if the project got derailed, she could lose her job. She could get blamed for it. We like to do the blame game in the office so often. So Keisha takes a big risk by actually bringing this to Cheryl's attention and saying, hey, I know something just doesn't seem right. But if somebody doesn't do that, it's pretty easy to, I think, to hide things. So it's a combination of things. Are people really willing to speak up? And are you creating an environment in your business where people are willing to speak up?
And I think that's a crucial point. I think that's a super crucial point. What environment are you creating? Is it again of fear? Is it again of blame and shame? Or is it a game of team and accountability and responsibility? And that's a
Right.
very different culture.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And the culture at Cheryl's company is evolving into the, blame and shame game, honestly. And Cheryl's trying to stop that. She's trying to prevent that from happening, at least in her organization to some degree. But she's under a tremendous amount of pressure too. And pressure changes things. Pressure changes things for people. Even with the best of intentions, pressure can change things.
And the constant of pressure is one thing that is not going away. It's particularly coming in corporate. If anything, it's heightening. So
Of course it is.
So the book, again, Pursuing Truth, the Ascending Ladder series, Karen Bulluck. Get the book, get the series, get the first book, get the second book. The third book's coming. And you're going to really, really it's a read. You're just going to get deep into it. And it really parallels so much what's going on today, but with drama and fun and excitement and really great character development. Karen, what are you working on? And do you have a gift for us? And what does that look like?
I am working on book 3. It's taken a little longer to unfold than the other ones, but hopefully that's going to be out in the spring. So I'm excited about that, and I'm working on continuing to inspire women leaders to take risks and to say no to ordinary mainstream life and yes to a life fully lived.
So how can people get in touch with you and work with you? And what does it look like to work with you?
Well, there's a number of different ways you can work with me. I kind of do it depending on what people's needs are. I just started a new program called the Clarity Intensive that's really to help women leaders figure out exactly what they want to do next. We all achieve a certain level of success, and then sometimes we ask what next, and that's not always clear. So that's what I started for that. And people can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, Karen Ann Bulluck, my website, daringtotranscend.com, and also Facebook and Instagram. So I would love to hear from you.
Where else can they find you?
Oh, on YouTube. Yes, on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes, Karen Ann Bulluck on YouTube. There's a whole plethora of stuff out there on YouTube, including some interviews about the book, some other ones, and a lot of my other work. And I'm going to be, upgrading my YouTube show in the coming weeks, I think. So we're going to be really upping the conversation around women like Cheryl who have achieved a level of success and are going to share their stories and talk about what's next for them.
And I love that. So I'm there. You get to really get to know Karen, as well as have all the links to get to find her all in one place. So check it out. All the links will be below. And again, thank you for coming on. Great book, Pursuing Truth. Karen Bulluck. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Maureen. As usual, it's been fun and we could talk forever. So
bye, everybody.